PowerShift. I'm here today to say thank you to a woman and our admin person here with PowerShift who have both collaborated and created a fantastic article on the PowerShift that kind of explains what everything is about. And so a huge thank you to Doreen from Our Greater Destiny and to Liz. And we've been sharing a link to the actual Our Greater Destiny website where Doreen has posted the article. It's her website. And we got permission or have permission to do a live on this so that we're actually speaking to it, and we're going to sort of read the letter now. For people who don't want to read it for themselves, it's a quick video for them to listen and to understand a little bit better about what's going on. We're going to put a link in the comments so that you can link to or see the other videos. There's an actual wonderful video that Doreen has put into the article. We can't play it here, or I won't play it here. But I think Nicole is going to play it tomorrow. I'm going to be doing this in English. She's doing it in French tomorrow or later today, whichever works for her. So I'm going to get started. So it starts with her alert. Doreen starts with her alert. Canada's constitutional correction to stop the reset. Canada Act 1982 corrections and formal proclamation. On March 3rd, 2022, Nicole Brassiere, CEO of the Canadian People's Union, NFP, which means not-for-profit, submitted an official request to the UK for constitutional correction, not an amendment, a legal, lawful correction, as follows. Opening statement to the UK Imperial Parliament. Please accept our respectful request for assistance for final corrections to the Canada Act 1982, stemming from the Canadian government failing to meet its obligations to the people of Canada by 1997, given that the Imperial Parliament of the United Kingdom still has policy responsibility over the Canada Act 1982, as it received royal assent within the Imperial Parliament and is still in force within your legislature. We further request a formal proclamation regarding these corrections as soon as possible to save our country and to restore peace, order, and good governance. The PDF is listed in the original PDF of the letter is listed in her document or in her post as well. PDF simplified. She did a fantastic job of this. History, usurpation of rights, international law, PowerShift, potential to stop reset. What follows is interpretation and distillation of a March 3rd, 2022 official request to the UK for final constitutional correction and formal proclamation regarding these corrections, to give Canadian citizens and Indigenous people of Canada as a whole lawful final decision-making authority and to stop a coup d'etat against our sovereignty and humanity, privacy and information and freedom, resources and country, and to restore peace, order, and good governance. Further to 1931, 1960, and 1982, the Imperial Parliament had and still owes a responsibility to Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada, whose collective voice was excluded by the Canadian government from an active role of self-determination in their own governance in the Canada Constitution 1867, 1982, Canada Act 1982, the Constitution. So this is the Constitution of 1982. In 1931, the United Kingdom granted Canadian citizens and Indigenous people the rights to self-determination through free and sovereign independence. However, the Canadian government refused to recognize the sovereign prerogative rights of its people. Transfer of the Canadian Constitution from the United Kingdom to Canadian responsibility was not done in consideration of Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples repatriation, but in light of the continued colonialism embodied through the sovereignty and prerogative power of Parliament. Under World War II, the Covenant on Decolonization opened the door to self-determination in 1960. It can be proven through international law and the imperial conferences that the will of the people will remain above the government to intervene whenever we collectively choose. Emphasis added, whenever we collectively choose. Self-determination is constant. It is not to be used and discarded only through each federal or provincial election. However, the Canadian and provincial governments made certain that we would not have legal recourse to do so. They kept our collective rights from us. The Canada Act 1982 is still in force in the UK Parliament. Although renamed in Canada as the Canada Constitution Act 1867-1982, the federal and provincial governments have been using it with their own constitutions and Supreme Court rulings as playbooks to circumvent the rights of Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples. By means of such constitutional conventions, the government seized the head of state powers granted to us, the collective citizens and Indigenous peoples, in our Constitution without our full knowledge or consent. Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada are the de facto, not in their position, employer of all levels of government in Canada, in that it is by our authority that the Canadian government holds its decision-making power in legislature. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 16, 1966. Canada acceded to the covenant on May 19, 1976, 10 years later, as did the United Kingdom. This correction is not merely about the Prime Minister and all levels of governments arbitrarily passing unconscionable laws that expunged our rights and freedoms, but specifically pertains to derogation from the United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the latest affront being invocation of the Emergencies Act 2022. In addition, the Canadian judicial system failed and continues to fail its citizens, wherein justices return the rule of law into opinion pieces issued as rulings, clearly shown during the COVID-19 outbreak and thereafter. As Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples who collectively possess the political and civil right to self-determination, we wish to invoke these rights within our governing structure to mitigate harm to our people and country by those who seek to rape and pillage its resources. Our purpose and mandate are once and for all, a place for all, place Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada collectively in our lawful place within the Canadian Constitution above the Crown of Canada. Moreover, our rights encompass those of the collective sovereigns to inherit the royal prerogative. I'm just going to address a couple of comments here. People are asking what this broadcast is all about. It is about, if you've missed the very beginning, it is about an article that is appearing on a website called Our Greater Destiny. We've been given permission to read it. So we're creating a verbal part or an audio part for this article so that people who don't wish to read it can listen, okay? And I'm going to continue now. We are asserting our lawful and legal rights not only through corrections emitted from the Statute of Westminster 1931 and implementation of the Canada Act 1982, but also through the international instruments that Canada signed, which form an integral part of customary international law to which Canada must adhere. In 1922, we witnessed truck convoy supporters from across the country, along with millions of Canadians already and willing to effectuate fundamental change to how Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples are to govern our country with elected governments in mutual respect and integrity. Unbeknownst to most Canadians, the lobbyists whose main purpose is to eliminate our rights and freedoms, thereby destroying the Constitution itself, have participated in the Great Reset agenda of the World Economic Forum, WEF, by installing themselves within our political party system of governance, including the establishment in 2008 of the Global Parliament of Mayors. By invoking our collective political and civil rights, our government will no longer hold the political power bestowed upon it at elections as the ultimate ruler of our country without accountability. The political power belongs to all Canadians, citizens, and Indigenous peoples. The same must be said of the collective rights of Indigenous peoples regarding their governance. Our mandate is not to destroy our governance or governments. It is about enforcing our lawful and legal collective political and civil rights over our governance. We, as Canadian citizens, are willing and ready to legally move forward to invoke much needed change. Canadians have options to permanently eradicate corruptions within our government once and for all, to revoke the political power held by those elected, to change Section 9 of the Constitution entitled Declaration of Executive Power in the Queen, prerogative and executive power, to be transferred directly to the collective Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples immediately or soonest possible, since the Constitution and Crown Corporation belonging to the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples, not the government itself. This demand is our right, and one we will be officially implementing from this day forward. This is how it should have always been, and can be, in light of the latest coup d'etat by the Trudeau Liberal government et al. We ask of the United Kingdom Imperial Government to implement the necessary modifications to the Canada Act 1982 to reflect the changes required by placing the prerogative and executive final decision-making authority upon the collective peoples of Canada, with all decisions to be made through referenda. We thought it necessary to request these modifications as our Constitution is still in force in your legislature. We are aware that, whereas our government had not fulfilled all of its requirements and still is held within your legislature, then it is still in full force and effect, and the final ties to the United Kingdom will remain and have not been spent to this day. Given the mess within our Constitution and fraudulent acts perpetuated by past and present Canadian governments to ensure immunity from prosecution or by illegally disallowing our rightful powers, we, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples, are presently faced with no other legal recourse, emphasis added, than the use of international law, which Canada and the United Kingdom were signatories. We further request a formal proclamation to correct these fraudulent acts as soon as possible to save our country and restore peace, order, and good governance. By lawfully moving forward, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples as the collective sovereign will have greater oversight with legal recourse over our government's oh my goodness, it's Saturday, I can't pronounce this word. Surreptitiously selling our country and its resources or revoking our rights by invoking the greatest reset coup d'etat created by the World Economic Forum and any other form of dictatorship against our peoples by reducing our status from citizen to client, emphasis added, in our own country without our informed consent. I don't know how many people understand this, but we are no longer citizens in our country. According to our government, we are now clients. By holding an emergency meeting of the United Kingdom of Imperial Parliament, you have the opportunity to rectify offenses perpetuated on Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples by placing them as collective head of state with full powers of the prerogatives and executive final decision-making authority over and above the present Crown of Canada. Then the United Kingdom will be free to repeal the Canadian Act 1982 once the corrections and assent have been given. Custom does not overrule law when decolonization and self-determination are issues. Nicole Labrassiere initiated legal lawful action to place final decision-making authority with Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples as a whole. Otherwise, attempts to change a long-standing status quo risk political and legal interference. Fraud vitiates every transaction and all contracts. People in decolonized countries can initiate a similar request to take back individual and collective power and stop the reset. Make new decisions based on intellectual courage. We must find a new plane of thinking and behavior if we're fully to potentialize our humanity and freedom. And then it says, please share this publication widely. There's a lot of links to great videos in this article as well. And like I said, I will put the link to the article below. And I'm just going to answer a few questions here now, like how many people do we need to sign? Well, we need everybody who wants to have their collective rights, this collective civil and political rights, aged 15 years and older, that is a Canadian citizen or Indigenous person to sign. That's how many we need to sign, as many as can sign. At first, we thought we needed 51%. We don't really need 51%. We need as many as can sign. We will continue collecting signatures up until the day that change happens, because it really is about the people wanting this. The great thing that the convoy did is it demonstrated just how many people in Canada do want change. This is something that has never been allowed to be demonstrated that largely before. It's always been stopped. It's always been carefully controlled. So it's a wonderful thing. Signing your declaration, you can find the Convention of Consent at the PowerShift.ca. I turn here, right here. The PowerShift.ca is our website, and it's an online form. You don't print it off. You sign it right online. Again, it's at www.thepowershift.ca. It's called Convention of Consent. It'll be the first thing you see on the first page that opens when you go to the website. And it's available either on your phone or from your computer, laptop, wherever. We've made it mobile friendly. And yeah, it's a digital document that you sign. And the reason we've done it this way is because it's saved to a server that is HIPAA compliant or privacy compliant for the Privacy Act. And none of your information is ever revealed. It's all completely saved. It's none of your information is shown How else do I say? None of your information is added. We don't create a mailing list from your information. It's solely for this purpose. And that's it. And if you, while you're on our website at thepowershift.ca, if you want to support the PowerShift as a PowerShift supporter, you can join the PowerShift for free of charge. You just create a sign-on account. You'll have access to sections on our website that you wouldn't normally have access to. And if you if you want to donate, that's fantastic. If you want to become a member of the Canadian People's Union, we do need members to demonstrate, much like the convoy demonstrated millions want this. We need members within the Canadian People's Union as well to demonstrate that there's enough people behind us that want this. And there is a membership fee for that, because as members, you get access to additional information. You're actually a member of the nonprofit corporation then. And that's it. Oh, 1922, 2022. So yes, what I said is a typo. Thanks for catching that. So yeah, we've been doing this for a while, and we're finally, people are starting to understand it, and we're very grateful for this. Please share this video. Share the one that Nicole does if you are bilingual or only speak French. Share the one that Nicole does later. And thank you very much. Please sign, donate, share, become a member of the CPU. We also have merchandise. If you choose to, the posters behind me, they're actually meant to hold when you're protesting. They're kind of made out of canvas. So yeah, it's we've kind of got all the bases covered here for whatever you choose to do, however you choose to help. We don't do our own protests. What we do is we ask people, if you're a PowerShift supporter and you're showing up to a protest, bring your PowerShift banners. If you don't want to purchase them, that's fine. Use them as a template to make your own. That's all. And I think that's it. I'm going to keep this kind of short, however long it took to read this, about 20 minutes. So thank you, everybody, and you'll be seeing from us a bit more often. Nicole and I have been in the background doing a lot of work with everything, but we're finally coming up for air, and you'll be seeing a bit more of us. Thank you. Bye.